Okay. Hi, guys. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Let's just wait for a couple of people. Let's give everyone 2 minutes to log in. So currently we have around 24. So if you just jumped in, please say hi in the chat button. There's a chat button over here where you can say hi, introduce yourself, introduce what you do and what company you're from. If you can just do that, please. I can see a few people. Hi, Ruby. I always see you at these events, Ruby. Thank you for coming. Good afternoon. Hi, Thea from AFNI. Hello, hello. Hi, Mary from Viva South Luzon. That's really nice. Wow, we have someone from Baguio. You know, this is the beauty of these events, of the online events. We can have people come in from different parts of the Philippines and even some countries. So it's really nice to have you guys here. Wow, we have a couple of people from Cebu. That's really nice. Okay, so let's just give everyone a minute. While we're waiting, I just wanted to thank everyone and welcome you guys to the 11th community webinar. So these are the webinars that we actually create for our clients, but of course we welcome other companies as well, other individuals who would want to learn. While we're waiting, I'll just run with you guys the house rules. So you're in listen-only mode. You can hear us, but we cannot hear you. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. We have a chat button and a questions bar at the bottom of your screen. So please type in anything that you want. We will have a Q&A by the end of the session. So Darwin, our guest, will be answering all of your questions. And we are also working from home. I can see that Darwin is at home. I am actually at the office, but it's walking distance. And I think for most of you guys, since we're back in quarantine, we're at home and we're recording. So if you can hear background noise, please bear with us. If there are technical difficulties, we'll address that as soon as we can. We're recording, so we'll receive a copy of the presentation after this. And we have a Q&A, and please share it all over social media. And the most important rule of all is for you guys to enjoy. So let me just. So welcome to our latest webinar, What to Do During a Hiring Freeze. So for today's webinar, we have Darwin Rivers, the president and founder of the Philippines HR Group, with us to be sharing his insights. So I will pass the virtual floor over to Darwin, and enjoy, you guys.
Hi, everyone. Good, beautiful Wednesday. So again, my name is Darwin, and I know that most of you guys are either at home or some of you guys are part of the Scout Club team, most probably you're in the office. So I'm happy that you're spending time with me, so you're spending time with us to invest in learning. And this is something that I am really am passionate about. I mean, sharing experience, because not only in sharing my experiences, I know that I can also learn from you guys. So that's the reason why we have a Q&A, we have a chat box. So make sure that if you would like to share anything, feel free to do so. Now, let's go to our main topic. Our topic for today is about hiring freeze, right? So basically, let's just imagine you start 2020 and business started good, and there's a news about this brewing pandemic in Wuhan, China. But nevertheless, your hiring for Q1 is on the upswing, and you're on the roll. Your whole TA team is on the roll, and you're meeting target after target. Then calamity struck. What happens, right? Your management announced that there is a hiring freeze. So the seemingly remote pandemic that started in Wuhan, China, has now spread throughout the world. And government after government has declared lockdown to contain the spread of this virus, wherein businesses closed. So all hiring needs to stop. Now you're now experiencing, let me be clear to this, what you're now experiencing is a phase in your career where most recruiters dread, and it's called the hiring freeze. So during the hiring freeze, what do you need to do? First and foremost, do not panic, okay? Let me repeat that. Do not panic. Next slide, please. First is you need to make sure that you get things into proper order. And when I say get things into proper order, there are ABCs to that. First is you need to coordinate. The first ABCs is you need to coordinate with your stakeholders and hiring managers. Next slide, please. You need to coordinate with your stakeholders and your hiring managers, and you need to discuss and make sure that you put it on record, the temporary hold or cancellation of your manpower requirements. As you know, every requirement that goes through the talent acquisition team, there's a manpower requisition form. You need to make sure that your hiring manager would have a documentation that you're stopping or you're canceling that particular requirement. Two, or B, is you need to make sure you put a stop on all processes on processing new applications, because there is no way that you'll be able to onboard them. And C, you need to make sure to reach out to each and every candidate in your pool, in your talent pipeline, and inform them what they should be expecting now that you have this freeze hiring, or if you have temporary put on hold the said requisition. Now, why are these three things important? One, I've had experiences where there was a stop of hire, but the recruiters failed to coordinate. It was only a verbal discussion between the hiring manager and the recruiter, and there was no documentation that the said position was put on hold. Now, eventually, that particular post or position was actually needed, and there was a miscommunication between the hiring manager and the recruiter. So that's why it's very important to make sure that you talk to your stakeholders, make sure you have a documentation that that particular manpower requisition is put on hold and the hiring for that is put on stop. Also, legally, you need to make sure that you've checked, were there any candidates already that you've given a job offer or an employment contract? My assumption is if you are a recruiter that is worth his or her own salt, you know that you never give an employment contract. You always give a job offer. Normally, what best practice is, you only give the employment contract on day one of the start of the said employee. Now, if you've already given a job offer, then there's no legal impediments. But if you've given someone an employment contract, then it's already a binding agreement between two parties. So let's say that you've just given a job offer. So that's the reason why you need to make sure that you send out a documentation, an email, or a notice that to that particular candidate that you need to put on hold that particular position. Okay? So those are the ABCs. Those are the first things that you need to do while you are immediately after an announcement for the freeze hiring. Now, what's next? Next slide, please. So what's next? So basically, you might think that you have nothing to do. You're not able to process candidates. There's no outstanding manpower requisitions that you need to do. What will you do with your time? Of course, there is fear for you guys that, hey, would I be part of the team that would also be placed on temporary floating status because my current role and position is temporarily not needed? That's not actually the case. What you can do is you need to make sure that you and your team in talent acquisition will be productive, relevant, and you should always be goal-driven, even during hiring freeze. Okay, next slide, please. The first thing that you need to do during hiring freeze, now that's after you've done your ABCs, is you need to make sure to nurture the employer brand. Understand that during crisis, people need to identify to a brand that they feel is stable, a brand that would provide them whatever needs they have during a crisis, a brand that would resonate stability, that would resonate employee care. So that's the reason why during times of a pandemic, during times of crisis, during times of a hiring freeze, it's very important to activate your brand ambassadors. You need to make sure you nurture your employer brand. And how to do that? First is, next slide, is you have to have a candidate-oriented strategy. The candidate-oriented strategy is meant to drive traffic to your company's social media and career page. When you say social media and career page, that will be your anything that your company has an official site, either in Facebook, in LinkedIn, in Twitter or whatnot. You have to make sure, you have to think of ways on how to drive people to be interested, even at this times of anxiety, these times of there's a lot of things that people are thinking. You have to make sure that the impact of your brand, the impact of your company would be positive for everyone that would log in, that would see, that would visit your social media sites and career page. Having a positive, creating a positive output or engagement with your viewers, with your prospective candidates is very good to make sure that people would also be interested to be part of your organization. This is also a perfect time to review and audit ready-to-use templates. And what are those ready-to-use templates? Whenever, if you have an online application, check, is your current online application process something that is user-friendly? Are the templates that you're using in replying to candidates, are they positively scripted? Are they engaging? So that's the reason why having a candidate-oriented strategy is very important in nurturing your employer brand. And there's a lot of things that you can do during the times of pandemic in terms of nurturing your employer brand. You can actually have activities wherein you present to the media your corporate social responsibility activities or your engagement activities within your organization that helps your employees. I mean, anything that would be positive on how people outside your company will see your company. So anything that would, or anything also that would get the interest of those people who doesn't even know you, who doesn't even know the company, right? So that's your candidate-oriented strategy. Another thing, next slide please, is what we call the employee-oriented strategy. So the first one is you're using your external image, your brand. Now, at this type of strategy, your employee-oriented strategy, you're actually focusing on within. One is you have to engage your current workforce to be brand ambassadors. And that is something very important. When you say brand ambassadors, you have to make sure that you choose people, you choose influencers in your organization that will be the face of your organization, that will be able to provide a good image of your organization, and not only in terms of how they respond to or engage people in social media, but also in terms of if you have activities internally. I mean, your brand ambassadors would be able to help you in terms of your new hires. They will be more engaged that, hey, we have these people, we're having this crisis, and our talent acquisition team or our leadership team are our brand ambassadors, and they're making sure that we are doing a lot of things for our employees. You also have to check on short-term and long-term employee referral program. As you know, as every talent acquisition person would know, one of the highest in terms of conversion of talents will be coming from ERPs or employee referral program. Now, during a hiring freeze, of course, you need to also check on your current employee referral program and have a strategy, short term and long term. Okay, and then next would be how are you being involved in those employee engagement programs? I know that you will say that, hey, I'm part of the talent acquisition team. I'm not part of the employee engagement team. But this is actually the right time to roll up your sleeves and make sure that you help the employee engagement team, because you being in the different employee engagement activities will give you visibility to your employees, and they would have what? They would have an experience, more experience with you. What I'm saying is they would not only know you from the time that you hire them or you process their application, but because you're being part of an employee engagement program, even though you're part of the talent acquisition team, they would know that, hey, this person or this team is actually really engaging. I mean, you can have your own ERP booths during an engagement program, or at least make sure that you take part in whatever employee engagement programs that you have in your whole organization. The key thing is you have to be visible to your employees, and your employees should be familiar with you, because if they're familiar with you and your team, then it will be easier for them to trust you guys and provide you with referrals, right? Because it's part of your culture already. Another thing is engage your leaders or any influencers, again, in your organization to what? You can do a webinar or a virtual learning class similar to what we're doing right now, and engage both internal and internal employees and external audience, wherein they would provide a snapshot of their career growth in the organization. This is actually important, not only to employees that would see, hey, it's an inspiring story of my manager. This is something that I would like to emulate. But also for those people outside your organization, they will see what are the growth path in your company. Important is you continuously build your network and talent source. During the times of pandemic, during these times of crisis, there's a lot of things that you can do to actually build your network. Not only your network within the industry. Don't limit yourself with your network in the industry. Make sure that you go outside your industry. Go outside your comfort zone, because there are talents that you can actually find, and that would actually or would actually help you find at talents needed for your organization when the time comes. Okay, so again, you have your in terms of employee branding, you have your employee-oriented strategy, and you have your employer brand, which is the candidate-oriented strategy, right? Okay, so after that, what's next? Next slide, please. Now, improving the hiring process. You might be asking me, Coach Darwin, why should we improve the hiring process? Basically, this is the right time because you don't have any candidates. You stop on all your hiring process. This is actually the right time that you can put your resources in terms of auditing the gaps in the hiring process. Next slide, please. So what's next? Improve your hiring process. As I've mentioned, do an audit, check on the gaps. When they say check on the gaps, from the time that you're sourcing a candidate, from the time that they've filled up their application form, from the time that you process, from every step of the evaluation up to the time that they've onboarded. What are the gaps? What are the issues from the past that you've experienced? Write it down, note it down, and what are the things that you can do to actually permanently address those issues or problems. Because if you will not do that, you will still encounter the same problems, even after the hiring freeze is lifted. Again, it's always important. Normally, companies would do an audit twice a year, but take this opportunity to look into your hiring process and see what are the things that you're missing. What are the things that, what are your bottlenecks in the process? Look into your past experiences. Try to remember what are the issues that have arisen during the time of the hiring process. And that will help you improve your current system. Next slide, please. So after you improve the hiring process, you also need to check your candidate experience. And we all know as a recruiter that the candidate experience is one of the premium in terms of for you to be able to make the candidate say yes to joining your organization. So, and you can actually do it in a lot of ways. I mentioned earlier in terms of checking your recruitment gaps, because if there are recruitment gaps, of course, it affects your candidate experience, right? Now, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure if you do it in your organization, but I hope you do. In my organization, we have what we call a survey for all our applicants, and we try to ask them on that survey how they see each and every step of our hiring process, and that is a good source of data for you to check on the candidate experience. Another thing is in terms of your candidate experience, what are the people saying online about their experiences in applying to your organization? Please be sensitive. Hear them out. There's a lot of things that you can actually learn from looking at things that is posted, good or bad, about your organization. I know a lot of organizations even have their own team to just do a check on all of the things that is being posted about their companies. If you have that particular team, then that's good, because it means that you're very worried and you're very aware of the value of your candidate's experience and how it relates to your employer brand. So make sure you get the candidate experience right. Okay? Next slide, please. So aside from doing an audit in your hiring process, aside from checking on the candidate experience, this is also a good time to plan a digital transformation strategy. There's a lot of new tools, new uh, processes, best practices in terms of tools in the market that is available right now that you can check. And if you are a leader of the acquisition team, the best thing that you need to do is try to check each and every uh, tools or functionalities available in the market and how it can be used in your organization. A perfect example is what TalkPush is actually providing. I mean, it improve it. These particular tools not only improves your process or hiring process, but it also improves your applicant engagement experience. So planning a digital transformation strategy is very important during this time. Next slide, please. So we know that there is a freeze on your hiring. But of course, even in a pandemic, sabi nga, every problem, every crisis has an ending. And of course, when it ends, my dogs are agreeing. I'm sorry for if they're very noisy right now. If at the end of the crisis, of course, hiring will resume. So what you need to do is you need to prepare for future hiring. And how do you do that? Next slide. One is sync with your hiring managers. You have to make sure that that during the period that during the period that you have a freeze hire, you connect and engage with your hiring managers. Of course, you've already had the documentation that they've stopped their hiring, they forgo of a particular position, but ask them what are their next plans after the pandemic. What are the manpower requisitions that they would be needing? Because I'm sure they would be needing a lot of people, especially right now where they've either redundated people, some companies have put people on temporary layoff, some people even resigned during the pandemic and wanted to shift another career or went into business. So there may be positions that you need to backfill. There may be positions that you need to hire, and these positions might be niche positions. So have a constant communication or regular communication with your hiring managers and understand their need. What would be their plan and what would be their need, so that you know what are the positions and the number of requirements that they will be doing, and you can project that. Next is map and grow your talent pool. And for most seasoned talent acquisition professionals, we know about talent mapping. And when we say talent mapping, is being able to identify where the candidates are. So make sure you do that. You map where those particular talents are, and make sure you have touch base and engagement with them, and make sure you grow your talent pool. Even during the pandemic, make sure that you still engage your talent pool. You do not engage your talent pool just because you needed them in terms of hiring. The best recruiters would tell you that most employees or most candidates would be positive in terms of accepting a job offer with recruiters who they have engaged or have relationships with them even during the time that they're not hiring, right? I don't know if you're familiar with movies wherein a crucial candidate would have to check which particular company he or she would accept an offer. But the best thing that, or the clincher for that for him or her to actually accept an offer is his relationship with his recruiter. That's very important. So aside from mapping and growing your talent, make sure you have a genuine engagement with them. And of course, ensure operational efficiency. After doing an audit, after making sure you have different strategies in place, you have to do a what? You have to do a time and motion to make sure that when you started hiring again, that all of the changes that you've done to improve your process is in place and it's working like clockwork, right? Operational efficiency would only be possible if you do a time and motion activity prior to implementing it. Next slide, please. Improve and evolve. Now, most of you guys in the talent acquisition team are focused on certain facet of talent acquisition. Some of you guys are specialists in sourcing, specialists in interviewing, specialists in the recruitment or onboarding process. Now, when I say improve and involve, this is actually an opportunity. Take this time to improve and evolve your skills and talent within your role. Next slide, please. And how do you do that? How do you improve and evolve? First is study best practices. No one can help you at the onset if you do not have the, the motivation and the passion to improve. So you need to make sure you study best practices. Read books, read updates online, check on industry's best practices and whatnot. Check on different organizations on how they do things and what are they doing during crisis and what are they're doing in terms of why are they attracting so much candidates or what are the strategies that they're implementing. So study industry's best practices. Next is get additional training or acquire new talents. And during this pandemic, I know that you might ask, there's no opportunity for a face-to-face training, but there's a lot of opportunity for you guys to do what we're currently doing right now, virtual training. And you know what? Most of my team members, what I did is they have to finish a course in HR, not only in talent acquisition, and they have to make sure that they finish it within 2 months. And I'm not doing this because I didn't do it because I want them to be busy. I did it because I want them to understand the value of improving their own skill set. Now, training and acquiring new skills is very important. Um, we know that at these times, most of the jobs, even in HR, can be replaced by bots, can be replaced by automation, can be replaced by improving a process. And what I'm saying is everyone is dispensable. But for you to be able to grow in your career, you have to make sure that you are able to get the right skills that is needed at these times. One of the skills that you need as a recruiter will be your negotiation skills. How are you able to negotiate and discuss salary with a candidate, or in terms of behavioral interviewing? Are you certified to conduct behavioral interviews? Talent mapping, or in terms of sourcing and marketing. Yes, you know how to source a candidates using different job portals, but beyond using job portals, what else can you actually do? You have to learn how people in digital marketing or marketing are doing to attract people. So what I'm trying to say is acquiring new skills is adding value to yourself and to your career. Next is getting a mentor that would actually guide you. We have a lot of mentors around, and your mentors can be people or leaders within your organization, or people that you look up to outside your organization or within your industry. I mean, in the Philippine HR group, we have senior mentors that people would ask questions or would ask them to be mentored into, and not only in talent acquisition, but all of the facets of HR. Having a mentor or a coach or a guide or a teacher is important because these people provides you with experiences, valuable experiences that you can actually learn from. Okay? Next is invest time in self-study and learning. This is what's similar to what I've said in at the start of Improve Involve, where you can study best practice in this industry. You would only do that, or you can only do that by investing time in self-study and learning. No one can drive you or motivate you to improve yourself. It's only you. So if you really would like to grow your career as a talent acquisition professional, as a person who works in HR, which of course we know is one of the noble professions, please invest in self-study and learning. Please invest in finding a mentor. Please invest in getting trainings and acquiring new skills that you would need. Next slide, please. As closing, I don't know why this was not updated, but as closing, you have to remember that as part of the talent acquisition team, as part of HR, your role is you are the gatekeepers of your company. I always tell this to my team, to my talent acquisition team, that you are in the best position to not only help people get jobs that would provide for their families, but also you're in the position to help the company get people that would help the organization grow. Always remember that. And lastly, please understand and remember that your work in talent acquisition, your work in recruitment, whatever you do would reflect not only the company, but also would reflect your own values in life. So that's it. That's my closing for today's engagement, for today's discussion about hiring freeze. I hope that you were able to get some bits of pieces of valuable information from my end. If you would like to connect, I'm on LinkedIn. Just search for my name, Darwin Rivers. I also have a Facebook page. Just search for HR Guru Life Coach in Facebook, but do connect on LinkedIn. So I'm both active on Facebook and LinkedIn. And of course, if you're not yet a member of the Philippines HR Group, please go to our Facebook group page, the Philippines HR Group. We're at Facebook and we're also on LinkedIn. So right now in Facebook, we have 224,000 in members in Facebook, and in LinkedIn we're almost 1,000, growing community in LinkedIn. And it's really very important to be part of a community where you can not only share best practices but also be able to engage people in learning, updating news and information, and also inspiring people and creating value not only to your organizations but to yourself in terms of your journey in HR. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Darwin. That was a very insightful presentation. We really appreciate, and we personally agree that we should be creating brand ambassadors, especially if you're on hiring freeze. It's really important to engage your current employees so that they can go out and spread the word. And when you're ready to hire, you've already trained your people and your candidates are more engaged. So we have a couple of minutes. We have 20 minutes left. So I will be, and we have a couple of questions. We have 8 questions and a few questions on the chat panel. So let's start. So first question, do you have examples on what virtual events we can do for employee engagement? Will it work for large organizations like the BPO industry?
I'm from the BPO industry. I've been working in the BPO industry for the longest time. During this crisis, being in an organization that has multi-site across the regions, what we do is, yes, having virtual engagement is effective. You just have to make sure that you have to have a very good topic, or you have to have an outline of what you will be doing during that virtual event. I'll give you an example. What is your purpose? Kasi that's where it will all start. What's your purpose of having a virtual engagement? Is it a learning session? If it's a learning session, then why not do it like a brown bag session where you discuss and share experiences, share updates about the company, share experiences about the different departments that you have, that you're into, or make it fun. I mean, we've had sessions where we've asked team members as a group to do a TikTok, to do a what do you call this? A singing contest, or a virtual karaoke during the session. We've actually done charades during virtual sessions. So it's really more of it is engagement, especially now that most people are having what they call cabin sickness, being at our homes for what, 2, 3, 4 months, almost 5 months already. Um, Being able to really engage them, even virtually, is helping on getting rid of those anxieties, getting rid of those fears, the stress. So I think proper planning of what we really need to do or want in terms of the purpose of those virtual sessions. Is it a learning session? Is it an engagement session? Is it more of providing updates and news about the organization? Is it a planning session of what you will be doing post this pandemic?
Yeah, that's actually really great. I've actually been seeing a lot of TikToks from like Transcom in particular. They've been releasing a lot of those. And just to share with you guys, one of the things that my company does, we have this water cooler chats. They encourage everyone to jump in on a 20-minute call. And I agree with what you mentioned, that we should plan an agenda. So learning sessions, is it an employee engagement thing? Is it a planning thing? So thank you for that. We have a couple of other questions. So if you have other questions, please type in the chat button or the Q&A button. So next question. For this, there's a similar question for this one in the chat. Can you give examples on how we can approach short-term and long-term ERPs? What kind of incentives should we provide, and how do we encourage them to continuously refer? There's a similar question that says, is there any strategies that you could highlight to improve employee referral programs, please?
Wow. It all depends on, for me, on top of my mind, it depends on the philosophy of organization, your budget, and then what would be the your short-term and long-term plan. But in terms of creating a short and long-term employee engagement program, when I say short-term, it's really more of building your pool on specific buckets of candidates. Kasi, di ba, as a recruiter, we have a pool for those who are entry level, supervisorial, managerial. and we normally identify them as easy to hire, niche type, or hard to hire candidates. And we would normally also bucket them on, are these people able to join the organization within the next 15 to 30 days, 60 to 90 days, or whatnot. So what I'm trying to say is, during the time of pandemic, create a employee engagement program where you have those in mind. You can either it's not really providing monetary uh, um, rewards. I mean, during our latest ERPs, what we do is we provided them with items that we've shipped to their house, or points that because we have a point system in terms of our rewards and recognition, and where leaders award points to a certain employee, and they can actually exchange that in the future. um, it's more of, if I'm going to create a short-term employee referral program, would be for just building my pool, and would it be for those positions that I know, based on my discussions with my hiring manager, are the positions that they would immediately need post-pandemic. So these are the positions that they need to hire within 30 to 90 days after pandemic. So kasi ano yan, you should be able to immediately after the crisis is lifted, and freeze hiring is no longer freeze hiring is lifted, you should always be ready, because your managers, your hiring managers will expect, hey, what have you been doing for the past 3, 4, 5 months? You should already have a candidate in place. So that's what I mean. Having a short-term program will be for those types of positions that would be immediately needed post-pandemic. Your long-term will be more of what would be so right now we're on Q3, what would be your Q4 or Q1 of the following year? It's just building your funnel, building each and every bucket that you would have in your pool.
Okay, that's really interesting. I do agree you should be able to prioritize which roles you need, which ones are urgent, and then you should be ready as soon as recruitment resumes. Correct. So thank you for that. We also have, okay, how do we engage the candidates that voiced out online bad experiences? Do we reach out? How should we approach that, as our company has a couple of those on Indeed? Good question.
You know what? The barometer for you in terms of you being a good HR or being a good recruiter, if you can turn those negative people into your own ambassadors. What I mean is, if you're seeing negative comments about your company, engage them, reach out to them, and ask them, well, first, apologize for their experience. Do not invalidate their experience, because that's their experience, right? Don't invalidate their experience, do not invalidate their feelings, but more of apologize and see ask them what they can suggest that to better improve your process, or provide them with an update on how you are actually improving your process. And then it's really more of, whenever you engage them, make sure that you have this, you're on a point of not being defensive, right? You should be on a point where, hey, yes, we are. You might have a valid concern. Let me address that concern, and let me tell you how you and I can work on it. And even if that person would not join your organization, or even if this person would say bad things or have said bad things, at least end of the day they would say, hey, this particular company reached out to me. I'm happy to tell you guys that um, my feedback is being heard and they're improving their process, right? So um, making those negative comments into good comments is something that you will need to learn also. That's actually a skill for HR that you need to acquire also.
Okay, and I think practice makes perfect. So reach
Yeah, and
out.
also agree. And your brand ambassadors within your organizations, your influencers within your organization can actually help you do that. I mean, if there are negative news, negative comments being hurled to your company, have your brand ambassadors, your influencers, be active in providing positive content about your company, while you yourself reach out to those people who have issues and concerns, and
Okay.
try to win them over.
Yes. So just reiterating the importance of creating brand ambassadors within your company. Okay, we have a couple of other questions. So this one is from Gladys Zafra. Okay, when you seek the recruitment experience feedback from candidates, what is the common feedback? Are there appreciations been expressed? And for those whose experiences were not that great, what are the usual issues and how have you addressed the issues?
You know what? The in my experience, the most common is if it will actually reflect on the candidate survey form if you have a good system in place. If you have a good system in place, they would appreciate each and every step of the way. They would say that um, they, for example, if they were able to know immediately the result of their examinations or the result of their application, they would say thank you, because I think this is very common. Um, One of the pet peeves of candidates is when a recruiter will tell them that we will update you regarding your application, right? And you will wait for days, weeks, and months, and they've never really updated you. And that itself, that particular practice is something that we need to change. It's negative for us as recruiters. We need to make sure that we need to inform the candidate in every step of the way if they pass or fail. And if they failed, what are the areas of improvement? You might have a near hire program in your organization where even if they fail, you can actually enroll them and encourage them to be part of a near hire program where they can develop their own skill set and eventually be part of our organization. Um, the way you speak, the way you treat the candidate from the time he enters the door of your company is a time that that particular candidate is already evaluating what kind of company he or she would be part of. So how you treat each and every candidate is really important. You 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 treat the candidate like they're someone that would really add value to your company. Gone are the days where it's the the candidates who are running for employment, that they are begging for an audience with the recruiters. Gone are those days. It's already shifted to the time that we, as an organization, needs to sell ourselves to the candidates, because there are a lot of businesses and companies that they can go to. And if we want to get the best of the best in the market, we have to make sure that we provide we give our best foot forward our brand, how we treat our candidates, how stringent or how streamlined our processes are is important. It will create an impression to the candidate.
I agree 100%. The war for talent is intense. So the candidate experience is really crucial. So thank you for that, Darwin. Okay, so we have a lot of questions. I'm really happy. What is the effective tool in hiring in this pandemic, especially if it's an urgent hiring without spending money of the company? Okay. So do you have suggestions on tools that doesn't really cost that much? Yeah.
What we did is we make use. I mean, when we say cost, it's relative kasi of where you are or what type of organization you are into, right? But if you're asking me what you can do in terms of hiring during this time of pandemic, we all know that face-to-face interviews or face-to-face processing is not yet feasible, right? So make sure that your all of your interviews are virtual. You can use Skype, you can use Hangouts, you can use Zoom, you can use live stream or whatnot. In terms of, and those are free. Those are free tools that you can use to engage those candidates. Also, if you have examinations that the candidate needs to answer or to pass, or different evaluations that they need to do, you might want to try what are the available free tools. If you don't have one existing online, then you might check something that that online that are free. But of course, you have to really um, to really check if this particular examination, this particular test is the one that you feel would get you the right candidate. Because there's a lot online that are free. So those things. And I think what is important still is, even if it's virtual, and I think a lot of recruiters are forgetting this. Even if it's virtual, you have to understand that you need to have a connection with that candidate. If you treat the candidate as during the entire process as just a number, or you treat the candidate as this is you're just doing your job, you're not really engaged, you really don't care if you pass or fail, then it speaks volumes of who you are as an HR person, as a talent acquisition professional. What I'm trying to say is, whatever medium is available, face-to-face, virtual, engaging your candidate is the best, is always on the top priority.
Thank you for that. We actually have just 2 minutes left, but we might extend for a bit to answer some of the questions. If you need to jump out off of the call, it's okay, because we will be sending you the recording. So let's just answer some of these. How can you, this one is actually pretty important, I feel. How can we encourage newly hired employees during this period, especially this period that we are a work from home setup? So I think that's a very interesting question.
So one is, I hope that you have prepared yourself a very engaging onboarding plan for those new hire employees. In most organizations, because of this pandemic, when normally the onboarding is face-to-face in the classroom, they normally do it virtual, or in our organization, we have a video recording. We have a video recording of the entire onboarding, but there is still someone available that person can reach out to real time during the onboarding process, virtually. Um, how you can, if the question is how you can make sure that the new hires appreciate work from home, of course, explain to them the value that the company is doing work from home setup right now is because they're protecting their employees. They're protecting their employees, their valuable assets, that they won't be inflicted with the virus. And that's the reason why they need to do a work from home setup. And you'll be able to help them by making sure that you provide them with the right tools. Make sure that during onboarding, you've already set up their tools, you've already sent them their laptops, they already have their IDs, their logins and whatnot prior to starting. That's actually part of the the onboarding process. What I'm trying to say is make it easier for your new hire employees to adopt, because these people can adopt. These are millennials. These are millennials, Gen X, Gen Y. They can easily adopt on whatever system or processes that you have. But for them to appreciate it, you have to tell them. You have to explain to them why you're doing this. And you have to provide them, of course, the right tools.
Okay. And a follow-up question to that, how can you measure performance of an employee that is working from home?
It depends if you're in operations or if you're in support. In operations, there are certain tools that screen captures the performance of the employee minute per minute, right? And for those people in the BPO industry, you know this. For those people who are normally in the RPO, you would notice that there are certain tools that captures the productivity of the person based on his or her inputs on an hourly basis. Now, if you're a part of support, that's a different story, because basically it's more of the quality of service that you provide even if you're on work from home. Like, for example, in my team, I have different teams in HR that serves multi-sites, and that they have different businesses that they support. So I evaluate them based on the feedback of their stakeholders. That's important. Two, are they meeting their KPIs, even if they're doing virtual work? Because their KPIs would not change even if they're doing it from home. Their output, if you're part of support, will not change. Even if you're in operation, it will not change. If there will be changes, it will be very little. You'll just have to tweak it. But basically, the expectations are the same, right? So stakeholders, how they meet their KPIs. And thirdly would be, on top of my mind, would be on a weekly basis, during your engagements or one-on-one, you have to assess what if you are if they are meeting your expectations in terms of their productivity. So you as a people leader, you should be able to have regular engagement with them, one-on-ones with them, and so that the other person would know where he is at in terms of meeting your expectations.
Okay. Thank you for that. And we're down to our last three questions. So this is actually a really good one. We had to put some of our recruiters on forced leave because of the hiring freeze. How can we engage them?
That's what I was, the whole purpose of this webinar is to ensure that even if your recruiters is put into floating, they would understand that there are a lot of opportunities for them to to take even if they're not working. Engaging them will be more of encouraging them to, or motivating them, encouraging them to have additional learnings, have additional trainings that would improve their skill set, engaging them in terms of why not, instead of put them on floating status, why not put them on a what you call this, on a uh, rotational work schedule where they can still do work-related productivity, wherein they can do the things that we've discussed. They can continue to build their pool, their talent pool. They will continue to have engagement with their stakeholders. They will continue to or put them in a project where they will be on a project where they would be part of the digital transformation audit or the digital transformation program to assess where your company is, and if you're ready to shift to a digital transformation setup, or have them on a project where they would deep dive on the data that you currently have in recruitment, and provide valuable inputs based on that data. So there are things that they can actually do. Ako, on my point of view, uh, companies should not put recruiters on temporary floating status or temporary uh, retrenchment, because they have a lot of things that they can do even if you're on freeze hiring. There's a lot of opportunities that your recruiters can help the company even if they're not sourcing or recruiting for new talents. And those are the things that we've mentioned earlier during the entire discussion that we've had on this webinar.
Okay, and last two questions. As part of third-party recruitment firm, do you think we can demand or ask for our client company to improve their recruitment process?
Demand is such a very strong term or a very strong word. Remember, if you're a third party, you are the vendor, and what you can do is have an engagement with your client, wherein you can share best practices in the industry that they may adopt or they may want to adopt, or you can provide recommendations and suggestions on what are the gaps that you are seeing in their process and help them improve them, so that both of you will be working seamlessly. You being a third party, they will be able to have engagement with you, and you will be able to fully support them. Remember, they're getting your services because they need you. Now, flip the coin, wherein you are able to provide these services. Not only that, you will be able to provide them valuable inputs on how they can improve their process.
Okay. We actually have two questions, but we may have to just accommodate one. And then please feel free to reach out to Darwin on LinkedIn. We'll include in the email his LinkedIn details in the Philippine HR Facebook group so that you can connect with him. But for the last question, can you recommend trainings like Lean Six Sigma for HR people and recruiters?
During the time that I took up Six Sigma, one of the projects that I did was a project specific for recruitment. And you have to understand that Six Sigma is really more of process improvement. And the recruitment process is something that it's a treasure trove of projects that you can do in terms of Six Sigma. But aside from Six Sigma, there's other trainings out there that you can participate. I mentioned a while ago, are you already a certified behavioral interviewer? Do you already have the skills in negotiation in terms of negotiating salaries? Do you already have the skills in terms of digital marketing, which you can use in sourcing and identifying talents, or that you can use in attracting talents? Do you already have the skill set in terms of um, as a data specialist, where you can deep dive on the data that you have and provide valuable information to your leaders on how you can improve your system, or how you'll be able to use that data to further engage uh, your prospective candidates. So there's a lot of trainings out there. If you're part of the Philippines HR group, there are dozens, hundreds of vendors, training companies that would provide those, and we normally allow them to advertise and promote. The Philippines HR Group also has its own online learning sessions, and every Sunday we have an online live radio program which we call HR Cafe, usapang trabaho, buhay at iba pa, where we also discuss uh, issues, concerns, and anything about HR and about life. So basically, there's a lot of available informations out there. You just have to have the passion, the motivation, and the time to look for them. Remember, no one can spoon feed it to you. You really have to get it for yourself.
Okay. Thank you, Darwin. And yes, I agree. Training is really important, especially nowadays where we can keep your employees motivated. Training is the best way to go. So thank you so much, Darwin, for this afternoon. Thank you to everyone who stayed. I know we extended a bit, but we have a next webinar coming up on virtual events and virtual job fairs. So we hope to see you there. And thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. Bye.